I'll wrap up and let everyone go for beers or get on the train to go home. So I picked up some key points along the way through the event. And one of them, of course, was standards. There's a lot of discussion on standards, various standards, 5701, 6443, NIST, various others. If you heard these standards a lot through this event, you should probably take a look at them if you haven't already, right? You should probably take a look at how they work together, because you're likely going to be assessed from different directions against different standards. Because just in this one event, we heard at least those three mentioned many times. I stopped counting, honestly. I was going to try to keep a ticker, and no, a lot is what I came up with. As a result, you would likely want to map those three together. And if someone's done that, please volunteer it as an open source project. And if not, get busy mapping those three standards together, because you're going to get assessed against one of them, and then another one, and another one. So the controls that you've done to meet one, you need to know how those map to the others to actually get some sort of backward and forward mapping, which is a challenge because some controls are a big group and fragment into others, and trying to reverse that is going to be difficult when the little ones try to go into a bigger one. So think about this, make a conscious effort to do this for your organization. You're likely going to get measured externally if you're not already measuring internally. If you're not already measuring internally, start now. You need to be measuring, because you're not going to get your success if you don't. You won't know what you're succeeding in. So get familiar with standards, get used to them. They are likely going to be your life going forward. This stuff is hard to manage. So we're using these standards to actually gain some, wrap our arms around these pieces to make them digestible and bite-sized in a lot of ways. So it's not just the whole elephant all at once. Supply chain, that was the next one I heard. I think we heard every possible angle of supply chain discussions, whether it was the software side, the hardware side, the services side with our integrators, all of that. The whole world supply chain mess is a mess. There really isn't anything clear right now. There are some standards on supply chain. NIST has some. We talked about some of those as well. There are other supply chain practices and supply chain risk management frameworks that exist out there. Honestly, I don't care, pick one. But you're going to need to start actually having the conversation about supply chain and what to do about it. Right now, I mean, there are some countries that try to say, well, if we can't buy certain things from country X or country Y, okay, does that mean it's actually made there? It's likely just assembled there. So take it one layer off of just where it's assembled and a sticker goes on it. What actually goes inside there? Now, one thing I didn't hear enough mention of is things like software bill of materials, hardware bill of materials, firmware bill of materials, and what's known as the Vulnerability Exploitability Index, or VEX. These are things that can be very, very useful in your supply chain efforts and help you manage your supply chain risks. These are things you can actually ask your vendors to do as well. They're starting down this path, and if they tell you, nah, we can't do that, rethink whether you want to participate with that vendor, especially if they're a global vendor, because many other places are already asking for these things. Many other sectors are already asking for these things. I'm sorry, but your stuff that's made for rail is also made for water. It's also made for oil. Same company, they just put a different sticker on that PLC or that relay or that RT or whatever the heck it is, right? It's the same stuff. It's all flow control, SCADA, SCADA. So think about ways that are useful cross-sector to get these vendors to actually provide you with these things, because they're already starting down this path. Leverage their momentum to your advantage so you can use this. Regulation, another one. That one's tough. As you know, I'm a former regulator, so this one is not an easy space. I can tell you it's extremely difficult to regulate these sectors. Be careful trying to get a perfect regulation. That's really unachievable. Technology moves faster than laws. Hackers move faster than laws. So I would rather have, obviously, a terrible regulation in the hands of a seasoned regulator versus the most perfect regulation in the hands of a brand new regulator who doesn't know what they're doing. You need some experience in there, because honestly, it's not the regulation that gets you. It's the monitoring and enforcement that gets you. How it's implemented on their side, the regulator side, is key. If you have influence at that point, start talking about that now, get ahead of it. So find out what your monitoring and enforcement programs are going to look like, shape them in ways that are useful to you to get them what they need, so there's an easier relationship for translating what you're doing to their visibility so they can digest it. And in theory, if they're happy with what they see, they regulate you less and give you more flexibility. Safety, that was a key one, mentioned a lot. And As we talked about security, safety, the differences, protecting the people from the machines or the machines from the people. There's a lot of interplay between these two. I mean, maybe separating them is a good idea, maybe merging them is a good idea. I think having that conversation is something that's necessary and must continue. I can say from what I've seen out of any control system I've looked at across many sectors, don't connect your safety systems to anything, right? If they're pushing data out, at best, that's what you want. But if you're connecting them to something else, that's a bad idea. Anyone familiar with the Triton Trisis event? Okay, this is something that happened in the oil and gas space. I know some of you guys are. So when you have a safety intermittent system, it's got the program and run mode, physical key switch, right? So you can put it in program mode with a key, and then turn it into run mode and take the key out, in theory, so that you can't program this thing and change its safety settings. The attackers, since the device was networked, the attackers were able to come in and change the digital sensor of the lock from program to run. This is a physical component. So that is the level of sophistication that your adversary has against your safety systems. That is absolutely jaw-dropping. And that should frighten you to no end. Do not connect those to anything and take those components seriously. The last one I saw was innovation. And there was a lot of concern around innovation. And I think just seeing what we're looking at, we're all buying tomorrow's great, fantastic widget because it is what the vendor is selling us. In most cases, I haven't seen any infrastructure company ask for some sort of 3D spinning Java interface to their control system. No one's asking for that, but that's what we're being delivered. So we're stuck with buying it. You're trying to ask humans not to innovate, whether it's profit motive or just because they want to. It's like asking them not to breathe, right? That's going to happen. So unfortunately, your job is to try to secure these things in the face of insane innovation and technology. We're actually using technology to aid technology. We're using technology to innovate itself in addition to us innovating it. So this is only going to get faster and it's going to get more challenging. So the part about innovation, yes, if you could slow this all down and say, stop, we want to make this thing a trusted, locked environment. By the time you did that, the rest of the world would blow past you. Absolutely leave you in the dust. So you have to try to figure out a balance between the innovation components and what you can and can't do in terms of security. You are managing the unmanageable risk. So there are lots of things. We've got prevention, detection, and response. It's old school stuff. Security is arguably one of the oldest disciplines. We've been practicing it for a very long time, but it's a hard part. It's a hard job. It doesn't get any easier. And the fact that you all have jobs is because it's hard. So embrace the fact that it's hard, lean into it, and figure out some really innovative and creative solutions for the next conference that we have. That's my mission to you. And before you leave, if you haven't exchanged a single business card, then shame on you. First time event, human face-to-face in a long time. You should have made some friends before you left, and if not, make some friends before you leave. All right. With that, James, any closing remarks?
Yes, thank you to all of our sponsors and our speakers, and most of all to our attendees. And a big round of applause to Patrick Miller for driving the intelligence on this show. So I wish I had some words of wisdom, but I can't match yours, sir.
I think you're just exhausted from managing you made it look seamless, and that's a very hard job.
You're a gem of an asset, and I'm privileged to have you here with us today. And I hope to see you all in the United States on May 12th and 13th. And this show takes place every year, mostly in London, but we're open to ideas. And let's go have some coffee and exchange some business cards.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.